when I walk mindfully, if you've ever done mindful walking, you're looking from above down and you're watching each step. You're noticing, you're listening, you're feeling into each step. And with each step, you're assessing whether the direction you're going or the place that you are occupying, is it meant for you?
Go to our website, which is HebrewLearningCircles.org. Go to Jewish Resources, scroll down to Parsha Videos, and you'll find the source sheet right there.
With Parshat Ekev, the Ishbitzer here will focus on chapter 11 in Deuteronomy, verse 24. And I'll read the two verses before that too, so we get a sense of sort of the context. So let me start by reading the verses. Hi im tishmerun et kol hamitzvah hazot, asher anochi metzaveh etchem la'asota, le'ahava et Adonai Elohechem, lalechet bechol drachav veledavka bo. If then you faithfully keep all this instruction that I command you, and this is after this whole parsha was about the different mitzvot, what the people of Israel, what we are expected to fulfill. And what we're going to read now, the last verses, is kind of like a summary. So again, if you faithfully keep all the instructions, all the mitzvot that I command you, and now the verse is going to summarize the essence of those mitzvot, and this is it: loving Adonai, your God, walking in all of God's ways, and cleaving to God. And the second verse says, "Vehorish Adonai et kol hagoyim ha'ele milifnechem, v'irishtem goyim gedolim v'atzumim mikem." Adonai will dislodge before you all these nations. You will dispossess nations greater and more numerous than you. Now, remember that this is part of a long farewell speech that Moses is giving the people of Israel as they are on the bank of the Jordan, about to go into the land. And their task, their challenge, is to enter the land, and they're expecting conflict with the tribes that are the nations that are living on the land. And here Moses is telling the people, you will actually be victorious against nations who are larger and stronger than you are. And here's the last verse, and this is where we're going to jump in and excavate for some real gold, real deep, precious metals with the Ishbitzer. So the last verse is this: Kol hamakom asher tidroch kaf raglechem bo lachem yeh. Every spot in which your foot will step shall be yours. Min hamidbar v'halvanon, min hanahar, nehar prat, v'ad hayam acharon yeh gvulchem. From the wilderness to the Lebanon, and from the river to the Euphrates to the Western Sea. Now, there's a few questions that, if we look at the verse, it could have said, you will go into the land and you will conquer these nations that are larger than you are, and this is going to be the territory from the wilderness to the Lebanon, from the river to the Euphrates to the Western Sea, etc. It says something interesting. It says, every spot on which your foot steps shall be yours. And the Ishbitzer gets curious about that. Here's some of the questions. Why was merely stepping on a spot enough to inherit it? Another question is, what was actually the more decisive cause for inheriting the land? Is it really true that just stepping on a spot is yours? And we actually know from the context that that's not true. There were conditions that were much more essential and critical. If you remember the first verse, I just want to remind us that was to love your God, to follow in God's footsteps, and to cleave to God. By the way, see the connection: footsteps, right, to follow in God's path, and then here 2 verses later, it talks about every place that you step. And then the next question is stepping / walking on the land actually symbolic of the deeper psychospiritual process within the individual? And I think that you can already see the hint is that when it says, if you will follow all these instructions that I give to you today, to love your God, to walk in God's path, and to cleave to God, there's a certain stepping here that's not just walking and conquering, but it starts from the inside. It does begin from the psychospiritual. And let's jump right into the commentary of the Ishbitzer in his own words. So he quotes that first part of the third verse, Kol hamakom asher tidroch kaf raglechem, everywhere or anywhere that you that your foot steps on shall be yours. And he says, Hainu, kol davar sheyuchal ha'adam lekabel tova bli ikshut. So he jumps right into the symbolic here, meaning that any goodness that a person can receive without too much effort. Ikshut means stubbornness, but it also means endurance. So what he's referring to here is that typically in life, we work hard to get things, right? We set goals, we work hard to accomplish them. If that's our career, our relationship, or our living place, or the amount of money we want to make, or the school we want to get into, or that we want our children to get into, and it's a dog-eat-dog world. Often people will report, right, that the way we experience life, a lot of us experience life is like we have to compete, we have to effort. In fact, it's what's called the work ethic that we've inherited from our parents, right? If you work hard, you will succeed, the American dream. Right? And what the Ishbitzer here is pointing to is another subtle experience that many of us have. And that is, what are the good things that come to you without needing to work that hard, without stubborn, determined, hard work? And then he continues, Hainu shedorech alea milemala. That means, he says, now look at the verse. It means that one steps on it, on the earth, from above. When we are stepping, when we're walking on the earth, we are always walking on it from above. The motion is from top down. V'itbonen ba, im hu b'rtzon Hashem yitbarach. And from that vantage point, we see or we observe the earth. And here's switching from the metaphor to its meaning. Imu Birson Hashem Yitbarach, is this step I'm taking, is the ground that I am, quote unquote, conquering, is it God's will? Is it destined? Do I have a right to it? Or another way to look at it is it right for me? But what he's offering us is that the walking on the ground is not a random metaphor, but actually it's a very purposeful metaphor, because the walking is putting ourselves in the posture of viewing our reality from God's vantage point, from above down. When I walk mindfully, if you've ever done mindful walking, you're looking from above down and you're watching each step. You're noticing, you're listening, you're feeling into each step. And with each step, you're assessing whether the direction you're going or the place that you are occupying, is it meant for you? Well, let's let that sink in. The walking is not a conquering. The walking is actually a mindful practice. Or mindful is a borrowed term, but from the term of our tradition, from the Kabbalah and from the Ishbitzer, it means to feel into whether there is a divine destiny for me. And am I walking the path that's destined for me? Is that path right for me? Now, what does that mean? He's going to Ve'im lav yakel bi'ado la'azov ota ze yanchil Hashem yitbarach la'adam beverur. And he's saying, how do you know then if your step is the right step? How do you know if it's your destiny, if it's the divine? How can you actually see it or choose it from the divine vantage point? If it is hard for you to leave it, right? You're taking a step. Now let's step away from the geopolitical or the political or the geographical or the historical. We want to step away from the concrete, smaller story into the bigger, deeper story of the way our soul and spirit work. And here, what we're looking for is, does it feel so right that I can't let it go? Does it feel so delicious that I want it in my mouth forever? Does it feel so right that I can put down roots right here? I'm stepping right into onto the spot that I need to be in. So I don't need to leave this spot. In fact, I don't need to take another step, right? That is the feeling. Like, you can't leave this. This belongs to you, or you belong to it. So like a reciprocal kind of feeling. And we all know we've had those. Maybe we've had that with our beloved in a relationship, or maybe we've had that with a calling, in activism. I'm really destined for this cause. Or maybe we've had that geographically, we've had that with a place. I moved to this place and I just feel at home. I don't need to go anywhere. I can live my life here. That kind of feeling, that feeling of rootedness, if you arrive at a place, at a situation, with a person, with a cause, with a teaching, with a teacher. For many of us, we have had that. We found our Rebbe, right? We found a teacher. I'm rooted. I've stepped onto my spot. I've inherited it. but it's also inheriting me. And then he says, Ze yanchil Hashem yitbarach l'adam b'virur. Then you know clearly that you inherited this from the divine. Now you're seeing your path from the divine vantage point. So he's sending us back to Parshat Shmini, where he comments on what are the signs for a kosher bird or a non-kosher bird. Which birds are we allowed to eat and which we're not allowed to eat? One of the birds that we're not allowed to eat are birds of prey. And birds of prey usually have claws, and they, like an eagle or a falcon, they come down and they claw in to the prey, and they grab it and they fly away and they tear it into pieces and they eat it, right? So that energy is not kosher, is not fit. We're asked by Torah to not consume that kind of clawing. So he teaches there that why? Because this is a trait in a person. If a person needs to claw onto something, you'll never know whether it's destined for you or not, right? Like clawing is too much effort on your part. To know whether it's yours is you have to have a light touch, a light footprint, and then to feel into it. And if it's God's will, it's there for you. You don't have to claw dig your claws into it. To inherit land, obviously there's a lot of this. This is it's very touchy and complex politically and culturally. And here the Torah is talking about our right. The Torah actually is our source for our right as a Jewish people to the land of Israel. And then, this is, it makes it, for those who want to argue for our right versus the rights of Palestinians or others, for the land of Israel, for the holiness of the land of Israel. It's holy to Muslims as well as it is for Christians. Often we're challenged and we're saying, well, you were not born into this land. You also conquered it. There were people here before you, et cetera, et cetera. So that is the kind of the discussion of rights and divine inheritance on a simplistic and an ordinary level. What the Ishbitzer is saying is he takes us into the essence of inheriting. What does it mean that a land is yours or you are of the land? And for that, we need to drop into a sense of belonging, a sense of looking from God's vantage point and sensing into whether in our deeper senses, our sixth sense, we know that this is our destiny. And that applies to the land of Israel, but applies to all areas of our life. We should really so be blessed to have that light footprint and that light touch. No claws, no clawing. If we need to claw the land of Israel, if we need to claw the people that we're conquering and oppressing and being hurt by and hurting back, and there's something about the clawing that is not right. This is not how the land becomes ours. And remember, if we roll it back to 2 verses back, we really only have the land when we are first in our spiritual essence, which is loving God, following the divinely path, meaning living divine lives and cleaving to the divine. It's only a spiritual life, a life of spiritual Torah, not just technical Torah, but a Torah that brings us close to our source in a real felt way. just like the foot feels the ground underneath it when we take a step. That's when we get to inherit the land or anything else in our lives. That's going to be it for today. Thank you for learning with us. I hope to see you again next week. Shalom for now.
Hey, thank you, everybody. Again, click subscribe button. Doesn't cost you anything. We really appreciate that. Like to have that extra layer of connection with you. Like and subscribe. Come back. Boy says so ahavo